Hey everybody, good afternoon. This is Kavan here once again, and wanted to quickly introduce you to what we are doing today. We're having a fireside chat with Suhas Motwani. He's the founding member of Product Folks. It's India's largest community of product enthusiasts, and it's on way to become the Asia's largest community of product enthusiasts. What we'll be discussing is twofolds, right? Number one, we'll be discussing community building. Why does every brand today want to build a community? And we'll talk a lot about the what, why, and how of building a community. And because we have Suhas today, we'll take the opportunity to even talk about product management. And if anybody out there is an enthusiast about products, please come in and tune in and drop your questions. We'd love to answer them. So, yeah, without a lot to do, I think I'd love to bring on board Suhas. How are you, Suhas? How are you doing?
Hey, thanks so much. Folks, can you hear me okay? I think just my
Can hear you well. Your video is off as of now.
that it's on for some reason. Just give me a
Uh,
second. Maybe I'll
Sure,
refresh.
sure. No worries, no worries. Suhas is talking to us from a very, very beautiful place. There's snow all around him. But I think we are all just still in Mumbai. Um, if any of you have any questions, around communities and product, you guys should start thinking of that. We'll try our best to, answer them. Hey, Suhas, can see you again. How are you doing?
All good, all good. I think all great sessions start off with tech glitches as always. So hopefully the 25 minutes are amazing with you.
Absolutely.
Thanks
I
so
was
much.
just telling. Sorry,
Yeah.
sorry. Yes.
No, no, go ahead, go ahead.
I was just telling everybody you're surrounded by snow right now. So I
Oh
think
yeah.
lucky you, lucky you.
Yeah,
Let's get started right to it. Suhas, we only have till 3 o'clock. I think we
sure.
may even get questions. So don't want to waste a lot of time. So first up, yeah, why don't you give me your perspective on this huge range of communities? Every company today wants to make a community. Community is the core. Community is the moat. That's what everybody is saying. What's the reason behind that?
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you. I think to start off with, and I'm super happy that community is coming to the fore. Small deviation. I feel like community was something that was always part of the strategy. It was never the main strategy for a lot of brands, right? Maybe there were like small user surveys we used to do, or maybe we used to create small groups on social media. Facebook groups have been there forever, right? WhatsApp groups like this. So I think in small pockets, we were always doing community, whether personal, whether as a brand, whether professional. It was always there for the last decade, right? It's been part of social media as soon as social media started. Now I feel imagine I think in social media 2.0 where brands were able to reach out to tons of people via probably performance marketing or ads, etc. Why it's becoming more important for brands and why the focus is shifting to communities per se is I feel this is the transition from say 2.0 to 3.0 where the channel of actually reaching out to your users or potential users is becoming easier through communities, right? Either you build your own communities or partner with existing community. We all know that this is a function like as businesses, as brands, you need to think of ROI, no doubt about that, right? And the reason communities were not at the foray is because in communities, ROI comes 6, 8, 10, 12 months later. It doesn't come off as immediately. So it wasn't seen very, very effectively. Those who've been building it since the past, maybe, say 2, 3 years or have been building it are seeing results today, right? Those are the communities that are saying go ahead. Those who haven't are now feeling the FOMO and trying to build, and they will see results in the upcoming months, right? 6, 8, 12 months. So it's great that a lot of brands are getting started, but I just feel this entire transition comes at the base of two. One, the other costs are going up, so this feels like a great channel now to engage as a business, right? And second, I think it's a lot longer term engagement that you get, right? Imagine if you're able to build loyalty with your users,
Right.
get feedback from lots of different channels that open up, right? Earlier, what was looked at purely as an investment. Today, people have seen some playbooks come in, people have seen some results come in, a lot more confidence in this space, right? Just like how influencer marketing was in its early days, right? Now people have seen results. So now you're seeing lots of platforms come up in that space. You're seeing lots of playbooks come up in that space. You're seeing rate cards. You're seeing so many things happening there, right? So I think it's very, very similar space right now for community. But these are top two reasons which I feel why communities have come to the mainstream or to the spotlight in 2021 and 2022.
Very, very valid point, Soas. Maybe it's an unpopular opinion, but I constantly think that building a community is like pitching your company as an influencer. You really love, let's say, a particular celebrity or influencer, and you become a clan around that, or even a show, because you have those shared interests and you really care about that, and then that brand loyalty just increases a lot. So I think just to add on to
100%.
that, which is very, very true, Suhas. Let's talk a little bit more about now starting a community, right? You made an extremely large community today. I think 100K plus members and a lot more as I hear from the various things you're doing. Um, how did you? What's your story? How did you end up starting this? Why product was the topic? And if you can help us with the initial days or weeks of how it looked like at Product Folks, would be very insightful for the audience.
100%. Um, our community started off pre-pandemic, so there are some nuances for people who are going to start off today. Things might be a little different. My journey started off with another community. I was helping out a community called Growth Folks. Got really like close to the person who was running it, now a very close friend. And that's when I had broken into product management as a career as well, early days for me. So I was like, hey, I want to focus on the product management side of things, right? The niche community for just product managers. And that's when maybe I was contributing to Growth Folks, rather than I started with Product Folks. Fun story is we didn't find like Product Folks as a domain was taken, so we're like, okay, hey, let's not think too much. Let's just add the in front of it under the Product Folks. Right? That was like the way we got started. And since it was pre-pandemic, we were offline only to start with. Right? We started with one small event back in Bangalore, uh, grew that to monthly across 9 cities, right? Pre-pandemic, we were doing monthly events across 9 cities. We did about 60, 70 of them, seven in India, two outside of India. And there was some consistency that started flowing through, right? And we used to hear what is it that the members really want, and that helped us build whatever comes next, right? Be it the live learning platform that we created, or the async learning platform, or the job opportunity platform. All of it came from what the members wanted. Once the pandemic hit, went from offline only to online only. That 2 3 months was a little hard because we needed to figure out, okay, hey, how does the transition look like? But in the hindsight, I think that was a huge, huge positive. There have been so many inflection points that have come through because once you go online, some logistics become simpler, right? So in the hindsight, I think a huge benefit there. No regrets in starting offline only because I think the bond that you build offline is a lot stronger. So even post pandemic, lots of community that started in the last 2 years as online only. I have a feeling that many of them might go back to a hybrid model, and that's where we're
Mhm.
looking at it as well. Because I think the bonds are a lot stronger offline, but
Right.
online gives you leverage like nothing else, right? Imagine you can get a speaker sitting in SF, maybe the
Right.
director of product at Twitter, or Stripe. We had like folks, really really senior folks, join us from Stripe, from Airbnb, etc., right? So that was a good inflection point for us and gives you scale like this. Imagine all of us are sitting on a conference from the comfort of our homes, right? So it might be like thousands of people tuning in, and we're all in different cities, but we're all connecting this way, which is probably impossible when you're doing like an offline conference of sorts, right?
Got it.
So I think huge positive, online plus offline, figure out what works for you.
Right.
That was the early days. I think never really thought it would grow to this something this big, but given that now I think the foundation is in place, I think lots of exciting stuff in store for 2022. In fact, we just launched a new initiative called the Product House, which is a community for Web3 product enthusiasts, and we already have 20,000 plus people joining us. So I think that's a very interesting stage we're at. But yeah, I think just some tips like you asked for people who are starting off 0 to 1 community in today's era of community building. If you're starting today, I think number one, it's very easy to start compared to an offline community. Start off online, that's fine. But always remember, engagement and retention becomes a challenge, right? We saw so many product communities come up in the last 2 years. It's easy for you. I can assure you 95% people tuning in, you all can start off a community tonight, right? And I can give you like the tools. I can tell you, hey, what do you need to do to start off? It's completely okay to get that going because you need to cross that inertia, right? You might be sitting on so many ideas, but you don't get started. But try finding a tribe, right? The reason I told you that engagement and retention becomes a challenge is because in today's online era, um, it's just a matter of one tab, right? Imagine when you're offline, you need to get ready, you need to go to a place, you probably will have that sunk cost fallacy. Today I can just close the button of the tab and I'm out of my Slack, I'm out of my Discord, I'm outside of WhatsApp. So that's
Right.
that simple to enter, but it's as simple to exit. Make it
Exactly.
more interesting, right? So that is my point. There's 2 points there that focus on that retention as well. Um, we can go into the playbooks in case we have time. I'm happy to share some ideas, something that
Right.
might work for you.
Absolutely. But I think makes sense. I think makes a lot of sense. And I think we have Ankita who asked a similar question. I think you talked about building a community, and you covered how to do that well. But I'd like to just highlight one point from what Ankita brought up is um, people think they're building communities, okay, and everybody's inviting everybody to be part of this new community. It's plain spamming sometimes, right?
Yeah,
So how do you build something of, or how do you know firstly that you're building something of value, right?
yeah.
And how do you onboard those first set of community members who, as far as I know, are the most important members you'll ever onboard in your community journey? So if
Yeah.
you can share your insights there.
Yeah, I'll show you both ways work, and I'll share both of you with. Share examples of, and I'm probably involved in both the ways. So you need to figure out which works for you.
Right.
With TPH, I'll give you examples also so that you can relate to it. You can go back after this session and check, and I'll give you personal example. There might be a lot more outside. I'm just sharing a little bit of what I know, what has worked for me. Um, there are both ways, right? First thing that I prefer and I like a lot longer if you're looking for stronger bonds, if you're looking for curated community, first 200 to 300 members, you need to chat one to one, right? And this is something I'm telling you from personal experience. Online it's even easier, right? You figure out if you're building a professional community, for example, go to LinkedIn, you can put all the filters, you can talk one to one. You don't need to just spam them with a link. Ask for
Right.
15 minutes of their time, get on a call, understand if you know what you're building is first of all useful for them, right? Number one, set up 10 calls. Maybe in a week, you just two calls every day will get you to 15 calls, right? Do that for 4 weeks. You have 50, 60 calls lined up, right? That is one way to go about it, one to one. And I prefer doing that route, but both ways work.
Right.
Remember one thing, always figure out your next order of magnitude. That's it, right? Forget about having a community of 1,000, 10,000, 1 lakh strong. Forget that, right? When you're starting off, just think of every order of magnitude of zero, right? Figure out how you'll get your first 10 members. That's it. Then move on 10 to 100. Then think of 100 to 1,000, right? So when you're thinking of that 0 to 10, like I told you, start off with um, if it's a professional community, it's easy. Okay, LinkedIn, you can just go to LinkedIn, figure out your persona, go talk to them, see if it's useful. Now you might ask me, okay, I'm not building something that is directly relatable on LinkedIn. If you're building, say, a productivity community, if you're building a meditation community, a cyclist community, a food bloggers community, right? Two other ways that you can figure out channels that will work for you, right? In like I mentioned earlier, community building is always going to be some amount of acquisition, some amount of retention and engagement. This thing goes hand in hand. So maybe if you're building an audience, if you're a creator, you already have an audience, you can translate that into a
Right.
community. If you don't have that, start building. You have social media platforms, start building that audience, right? It can be via your page, it can be via your personal network. You will need that to funnel people in, or it can be referral as well, right? Once you have your first 10, help them invite other people. All right.
Right.
I'll give you an example of that one to one. We are building a community called District 52, which is just, and there's a cap on that, no more than 52 people on that. But this is where we need to ensure that there's high quality. If people are not contributing, they're out and we replace them. Right?
Okay.
That creates a nice, tightly lit community.
Right.
On the other hand, which we have TPF and TPF, these are large communities, open communities where people can come in. And on top of this, we'll build layers, whether it's a membership layer, whether it's a curated community layer. For example, in product folks itself, think of it as a pyramid, right? We started with helping people break into product. It's a lot, think of it as a pyramid. A lot of people at the base of the pyramid, people starting off their journey in product management, or people who are jumping or laterally breaking into product management.
Mhm.
Now there's a layer on top, which is your mid layer of product, or the higher senior members of product. Now for the senior members, we've created just a simple WhatsApp group, right, outside of our Slack community, so that they interact with each other, which was not the case earlier, right? When you're
Right.
a small community, everyone's there. But now when you're a large community, you need to figure out stuff for your initial audience. And same way when we launched the product hub, there is no barrier as such right now, right? If you're interested in learning about web, you come join in the community. You might
Right.
build a layer. So that's why I'm sharing both the strategies work for you. You need to understand where, if we were to say that we would have gone with this larger community strategy when we were starting TPF, it wouldn't have happened, right? None of us had a personal brand, none of us, like TPF, didn't have a brand. We didn't have an audience, so
Right.
it would have been practically impossible unless we had like some other strategies in mind. So I think it all depends on which stage you're at. Pick that strategy, and also what do you want to do with that community. That curated community needs to have some effort, or some effort goes in both, right? You know, to figure out what works better for you based on what vision or what goals you want to achieve from the community. I hope that helps.
Definitely, I think it's a proper playbook for everybody here. I think talking to users one is to one is extremely crucial. And then I love that whole order of magnitude, as to like 0 to 1, 1 to 10, 10 to 100. Those aspects are going to be very, very, crucial. Um, Before I go into the next section, one more question I guess we have from Kashish. She's asking, she or he, sorry, is asking if, which is a better tool? Is it WhatsApp or is it Telegram? Uh,
Yeah. Here's the question. I don't want to use it depends, which is a typical product management phrase, but it actually does. To be very honest with you, depend on the kind of community you're creating, how big that niche can become, where your target audience is more active, right? If you think you're building, say, a crypto or a finance Twitter, that TG, right? That audience, I think they are a little more active on Telegram, right? And Telegram is probably great for one to many broadcasts as well. So that might be a great angle. But if you're creating like a community where you think your users or your members are already active on WhatsApp, today WhatsApp is probably number one in terms of engagement, right? So you need to figure out if you have that in you, but there's a downside there, which you're capped at 256. Are you okay with that? So there is no one strategy here. It all depends on what community you want to build, who do you want to build it for, which demographic you're building. If it's a USA only community, they're probably less active on WhatsApp. You want to figure out another strategy. If it's in India, if it's in Southeast Asia, Middle East, depends on where you're building. If it's a global community, then maybe the 256 doesn't fit for you. So you need to figure out that bit, who you're building it for, demographics. What is your 6 month plan, right? What if you hit that 256? It's great to start with WhatsApp, maybe, but those 256, do you want to create multiple such groups,
right.
right? We started with WhatsApp when we had city-wise groups, and then we used to have like 4 city groups, and then it became impossible. That's why we moved to Slack, right?
Okay,
And in today's world, I think Discord has picked up a lot more. You know, to figure out who you're building for, demographic, and what do you want to start with. So that next six
right.
months, at least you have that roadmap for you.
Correct. And if I can just add to you, Suhas, what you can look at, Kashish, also is the features, right? Like, I mean, are you looking to do an async community? Do you want a community which is fully in sync? Those are important points. There's a new tool, Circle, which is making a lot of rounds,
Yeah,
circling rounds, yeah.
yeah,
And I have been quite a fan of it too. And that's very async. Say forum like a community platform. So I think it really depends on that aspect also. So I understand what you want, like Suhas said. But now I come to my questions now. So I really like your Twitter handle where it mentions, come for the content and stay for the community. I think
yeah,
that's very powerful. And I don't know if a lot of people understand what the strategy here is, right? So maintaining a chalo community start bhi kar lenge, that's fine. It's more or less a lot in your control to start a community, but to maintain, you have to have this awkward dance between you and your user, right? Who will ensure that the community is thriving, it's managed. You will tweak systems and execution will happen by your members. So that's so tough to do, right? So
100%.
how did you get from your 100 members to a lakh today, and how did you ensure that you were able to keep it an engaged base? I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
For sure, for sure. I think the number of people entering the community has never been like a North Star metric for us. In fact, that's why I think we probably might be even over those numbers, but we should better start tracking. I think that's a note that I'm taking down, that we should track that better. For us, engagement has always been that North Star, because we figured that once we have that engagement coming in, right,
Right.
the acquisition somehow gets sorted. If you're providing value to your community, those people are going to refer you and you're going to get more people in, right? And this is completely organic, right? If you focus on, so that is where we wanted to focus on right from the beginning. I'll tell you how we got from our magnitude of zeros. I'll share that with you. Just to add one point before we get into that, you mentioned Circle, right? I think for you need to figure out whether you want a white label solution or are you working with these. So especially if brand people are coming in, Circle's a great tool. If you're a brand community, then also start putting in like community intelligence layer. Lots of people are building. For example, I think Threado is one interesting tool that's coming in from India, right? We missed out on that. Like 2 years of building, we didn't have so much analytics. We were just dependent on say Slack. WhatsApp didn't have analytics, right? Social media, we were able to pull in some analytics. But putting all that together, just imagine, community today exists on Slack, Discord, WhatsApp. Social is on our newsletter. We have Twitter, we have LinkedIn, we have YouTube, right? Many communities will have multiple. But then how do you know which user is active across multiple? So if you're a brand community, I think this is something I would definitely recommend you to attach on your stack, right? But I
Right.
just wanted to mention that since you brought up that, I think many brand people here, it is important, and there's something we missed out on, but this is something we are looking to correct. Moving on to how did we move from R 0 to 1, 1 to 10, 10 to 100? 0 to 1 was me. 1 to 10 was the offline event that we did in Bangalore. Started off with one tweet out there saying that, hey, we're planning to do this. A friend of mine joined to help out with the logistics. WeWork was very kind to give us the space and reached out cold to two senior product leaders, saying that, hey, we're doing this event. Would love if you can come down, share your journey, 20 minutes slot each of you all, and then we'll just hang out. And that time we were more of a networking community. Come get
Right.
interesting people in the same room, see
Right.
what happens. Today, now when you see, I think we're moving from a network community to a learning community. We
Mm.
have our own open learning
Right.
series that come up every quarter, and that's why you see the tag, right? Come for the content, stay for the
Mm.
community. um, so that is where the 1 to 10 happened offline. Then we started creating city chapters, and this happened across. So I think that 10 to 100 happened across multiple city chapters, consistently trying to do monthly events, right? New people coming in, some old people coming into the same thing. That was our 10 to 100. I think 100 to 1,000 was also in the same range. We grew from, say, 2 to 3 cities. We moved to multiple cities, right? We were doing offline events across 9 cities. 1,000 plus started coming in as we moved online. Right? We had multiple city WhatsApp groups in that 1,000 to 10,000 range. I think that's where we were. But as soon as the pandemic hit, we moved everything. And then since we had lots of WhatsApp groups, we wanted to ensure that people from different cities can interact with each other. So that happened once we started creating our Slack group. And Slack was a preference for us because it was our mostly our members were startup professionals. Right? This
Mm.
was the we were not too much on the student engagement back then. We were not
Right.
too much on the MNCs. If we were student, we might have gone for Discord. Right?
Correct.
If we were on the MNC, we might have tried some other tool, maybe like a forum of sorts. Right?
Right.
But here, imagine lots of startup people anywhere for their office work come down to Slack. So then this was a
Correct.
great fit for us. As we grew there, it's probably not the best community tool out there today. There are lots of other great tools, but it worked really well for us. Like in terms of engagement and product community, I think we were still far higher. That was,
Right.
I think, 1,000 to 10,000. After 10,000, specific initiative gave us the inflection points, right? And I think one of them, which I remember, was hosting Shreyas Joshi, Lenny Rachitsky, that entire series, founder of Coda, founder of Superhuman. That time, no one was focusing on connecting like Indian diaspora. Our members were mostly Indian, from India. But can we get senior product leaders in the valley who've been there, done that, and get those learnings here? So I think that was great, like one like inflection point for us. After that was a product conference that we did late in October or November 2020. One of the largest, again, I think 5,500 plus registrations, and back then
Wow.
it was, I think, early pandemic, and it was quite an experience. So that was definitely one inflection point. Whole of last year, I think we started focusing on a lot of these learning series, especially for people looking to break in. So this is another inflection point which helped us go from like the 10,000 to the next order of magnitude, which is essentially we started off with Insurjo, which is our flagship general product management. But we were able to get the best people in the Indian ecosystem, Indian product ecosystem, come and share their journeys. Right? Imagine the VP product from Swiggy, from the
Right.
B2C side. VP product from say Freshworks and Razorpay, again best companies on the B2B side, come share what they really like and what they've learned, right? Imagine learning pricing revenue from someone who runs revenue at Swiggy, right? What better than that can you get, right? So imagine if you can get 0 to 1 learnings from someone who's been there, done that, and the B2B on the user research side. So that one became flagship. I think last one we did, we got about 25,000 plus registrations in 2 weeks,
Wow.
right? And completely organic. So that was fun. We are trying to build that playbook and then try applying that now today to the Web3 side.
Understood.
Next, if you ask me, going from the 1 to 10, again, not the focus, but some strategies change, right? Now, what you need to do, you need to ensure that 0 to say the 1 mil, that range, you know, to keep that member audience also engaged, right? That they're also finding value, right? So what we did was after the general product management, we started verticalizing those, right? We have product analytics coming, we have product led growth coming, we have this Web3. So they are continuously upskilling. That's
Got
why I
it.
told you today we're a community of learning cross network. That is where we're sitting today. But that needs to continue going. But at the same time, okay, now how do you ensure that there's still lots more people who are interested in product, right? But if they
Right.
come in, how do you reduce the noise in the ecosystem? How do you help? We're not there yet, but these are something that we need to work on. One is ensure
Got
there's
got
engagement,
it.
more and more engagement, more and more members are finding value. At the same
Got it.
time, new members enjoy that onboarding experience. We need to get
Understood.
better at that, but that's the focus for us now.
Yeah, I think great insights. I'm sure this is getting recorded, so it's a lot of nice binge worthy stuff, for people to scale communities. I want to just jump into some questions now, because we have limited time.
Yeah.
Uh, so, we've got Hajara. I hope I get a name right. Hajara coming and asking that, which one, what would you suggest, like a community with less engagement or a small community with great engagement? Because someone often gets stuck between the both.
If you ask me personally, I would go with a smaller community with great engagement because I feel like that can definitely grow into something much later. If you have a large community with small engagement, you might give up on it or the community might die. We've seen tons of these happen, right? And contrary to popular opinion, like very, very few ideal state communities life where that many to many interaction is almost automated. You need to put in effort. There's
Right.
tons of effort that goes behind the scene, right? So don't forget that you as a founder, just putting it out there that everyone who's building communities, that is the truth. That is the honest truth. Whatever comes out in the front is probably the tip of the iceberg, right? So put in that effort. And if you ask me, I think smaller community with great engagement has a lot longer and larger potential for you to grow into something with longer, but focus on engagement. That is my personal
Right.
experience.
Yeah, I think always focus on engagement. Yeah, because people, that's how you know you're creating value. And you should be focusing on that. You create value, boss, people will tell their other friends, and your network effect should come in. Or your
Yep.
virality, if no network effect, should come in. Very quickly, I think a lot of people actually are asking about this, Suhas. I'll highlight Amrita's question, that
Sure.
if you want to create, if you want to create like a buzz or a sensation, a bunch of people are asking, and if you're new, you don't know a lot, what do you do? What kind of content works the best? And I have other questions up where people have asked, uh, does that mean that, like Aaron is asking, I think we need to kind of get YouTubers and journalists to like, talk about it and stuff, like how do you end up creating that sensational content?
Hmm. Great question. I don't think I have like a 10 on 10 answer to this. To be honest, maybe Kavan's better than me at this. Um, yeah, no, very very frank. What is this content for, right? Is this content to build that awareness so that more people know about your community? Is that the case? Is it some content you need to create to, you know? So I think I'm assuming most of you are asking from that point of view to build that top so that more people get to know about your community. It is important, no doubt. It is not important. Even we are trying to come up with great strategy.
Right.
I'll give you an example, right? Look at um, and before I give you the example, you need to figure out what channel works for you. So experiment with a bunch of channels because native content for each of these channels are going to be a little different, right? Um, if you're saying YouTube, don't. It's very very hard to build a multi-channel strategy, right? Having strategies across multi-channels. So you know to figure out your TG. Number one, figure out who you're building this community for. What is the community going to do, right? These two, once you have figured out, you'll figure out which channel works for you. For example, a professional community, Twitter or LinkedIn might be a great way to start, right? Or to start with, and then maybe both, but start with one, right? Experiment on both, see what works better, double down on one. That's for professional. I'm giving you an example. But if you're building, say, a writers community, maybe you want to explore where are those medium bloggers hanging out at. Maybe it might be a Facebook group, for example. Go be part of that, understand what's happening there, right? And say you're building a food bloggers community. Again, maybe Facebook groups might be great. Say you're building an influencers community. Maybe Instagram might be great. So TG. Once you figure out that, then you figure out channel. Now, based on channel, based on the TG, based on who you're building this community for, then you figure out a strategy for your content, right? And see what works for you. I think each platform has some hacks to it, right? Imagine if you go back to LinkedIn, at some point of time, it used to be like, hey, comment your thing, and then you used to get so much organic reach. Might look spammy, but do it once or twice because and today maybe like another example would be TikTok and Instagram, the Reels works really
Right.
well, or YouTube Shorts, right? If you're a video person. So each channel has its own strategy. How do you
Right.
manage to map this strategy to fun content? I mean, now again depends on the kind of community. Now, if you give me an example, we both can brainstorm on this session. कि ठीक है, okay, this is the kind of community I'm building, and then we can like build a strategy on this live session. We can do that if we have the time for it. But I have a feeling like as a playbook, there's going to be very different for each of these
Right.
channels. That's why I'm trying to give you some
Sure.
native things rather than telling you, okay, dude, use it because it's not going to work. Suppose I give you like I can tell you what worked for me, and I can tell you some basic lay of the land. Okay, this works for different things. So you need to map out these things rather than me telling, okay, hit Twitter. For us, I'll tell you, Twitter has really worked for us. That is primarily where we exist. Maybe get really interesting folks into the community, get interesting product leaders into the community, and a
Right.
multi-channel LinkedIn approach for us. So these are two main channels. We have smaller presence today on YouTube and Instagram, which we want to improve over time. But one thing you remember, all this is coming after 3 years, right? You cannot have a four-channel strategy from day one. It is very, very, truly,
Right.
truly very, very hard. And the same content does not work across all four channels. So slowly, slowly, you'll need to start figuring out. Maybe in the beginning, you posted across four, see what works, then nail down one channel, max two channels, then bring in other three, four, because you'll unlock different audiences, or you'll be showing, similar content, so that if suppose I'm today on Twitter or LinkedIn, then again it comes to me on Instagram or YouTube, then you're there on the top of the mind, right? And then maybe they will bring them back on your wherever you're building your community,
Correct.
whether it's WhatsApp, Slack, Instagram. That is also important. For us, this is something that has worked, and we're also trying to get better at it. Content is an important part of community, no doubt about it. There is no two thoughts about it. But these are three, four things you need to take care of, and happy
Right.
to brainstorm with you in case you have something that
Right.
you want to brainstorm. I'm sure there's not one playbook, but both of us
Right.
can,
You're
brainstorm with that.
absolutely right, Sohas. I think, unfortunately, we don't have time to do that live case
Yeah,
study, but I think we should pitch it to Pepper to do that.
yeah,
My personal take here is very similar to yours, and like start with one. And honestly, this whole sensation content never works in my opinion, because um, if you are starting for yourself, that should not be a problem firstly, because be patient, boss, but I think the tougher challenge is you've been hired to build a community, and you're like, Arey, mere startup ko, I want 1 lakh members by Friday, by end of year, and here 10x 100x growth is what's needed. That's a big challenge, and you need to convince your founders and your managers that that's not the right way to go. I think a good example would be this cashback strategies, which a lot of startups use in the start, but they were actually delaying market fit. They were like, free mein hai to kar lunga, but जब भी पैसा देने को आया, people stopped using it, right?
yeah,
So similarly, you may do this big thing when influencer will come and talk about it, and you may get the wrong set of people because their fans have come to see them, not because they are okay with your community standing. Your community persona is not digested, and then they will become dead people. They will not contribute. They will be, you will want to kick them out one day. So I
yeah,
think always start small, guys. Be patient, take your own sweet time. The first year is the toughest. You have to be, you should enjoy small wins, that, oh, one person posted today, oh, one person commented organically today. Those small wins will compound, and eventually you'll end up building something what Suhas has built over the next 3 years. So I think yeah, I think that's at least what I'd have to say. Suhas, we don't have a lot of time. We're
I
actually
understand.
we're already 5 minutes over. Wanted to just conclude this. I was actually curious to know that um, um, as somebody who's a product a manager, and you have so much insights there, and you've been building a community. Two things, right? One is, I would love your thoughts on tools. I know we discussed some of them, but if
Yeah,
you can do a little bit of deep dive, there is Scenes, there is Circle, there are
yeah,
so many tools out there which can be leveraged. And what you feel from a toolkit point of view as a product manager is the best. And
yeah,
also, you can even, since we are talking about the creator economy today, if you can even tell how creators, what your opinion is on tools for creators, and what products for creators exist today. And
yeah,
I think my point to ask you this last is because everybody here today can log in, sign up for free, and get their
yeah.
hands dirty, right? That's the best way to start, right? So, would love
100%.
your thoughts on any of these tools for creators, for building a community, and so on.
100%. 100%. I have a stack of sorts today. To be honest, I think I came across this map that Comsor had built in 2020. I think back then itself they had 300 community tools there,
Wow.
and I was like, dude, it's impossible for a new. And now I'm sure there'll be like maybe 1,500, maybe even more. I had built something that was into 8 buckets for anyone who's starting a community today. I'll try sharing as much as I remember or time permits. First one is definitely lots of folks here are asking also, what is that tool? Again, no direct answer. There are tons of them. Um, you can start off as easy as WhatsApp and Telegram that we discussed, to moving on to an intermediary, not a white label, but a third party solution like say a Slack or a Discord. larger communities, or maybe like Kuhu or scenes and stuff like that that we mentioned, to white label. I think scenes are also now white labeled and circle is white labeled. So build that into three layers. You can always move from one to the other. I'd keep white label as the last because I truly believe that's one of the hardest to grow because your hook or your pull needs to be that strong, right? Now WhatsApp, anyway, you're opening for other things, so you might come across this. Um, so that is the three-layer strategy for choosing your community tool. Next is maybe for events like this, right? I think Airmeet is a great platform, Hopin's a great platform, Zoom or your Clubhouse and stuff. If you're still active there, your Twitter Spaces, this could be for community engagement slash tools. Lots of tools are now building this. So this is for an acquisition side. You can do stuff like this. On the retention side, Discord has your voice channel, Slack has huddles,
Right.
etc. You'll find that many community tools are building it internally itself. As you grow, you might want to bring in membership, right? So for example, Circle is great for membership, or you can use, if you have a broader community, you can use stuff like member space and just integrate that, right? So memberships is a great layer to build on top of an open community, which is something even we're working towards. Lots of Web3 tools. I won't touch that on this one. That's an entire new discussion today.
Dows,
But
dows, dows.
yeah, exactly. But DAO tooling is a very, very interesting space. Lots of money flowing in there. So do check out that. Lots of your building communities. Web3 is a great way to incentivize your early members and build a community where incentives are a lot more aligned. So that is important. Community intelligence, I already shared. I think Threado, Comsor, etc. Great tools. If you're building a brand community from scratch, do check out any of these tools. Threado is an Indian tool, so suggest that. Scenes is again India, suggest that. Airmeet is India, suggest that. Right? Do check out all these. Engagement, many of you all did mention. Um, we used something called so as on Slack, so you find a lot of these tools that you can integrate, apps you can integrate. I think board games was one which we've used. Icebreaker.video, which is I think now changed its name. Another one was gather.town, right? These are three things that I remember
Right,
recently. Great for engagement kind of tools, some icebreakers, some games, some new ways for people to interact with each other.
right.
Another thing I remembered for events, um, a very very scrappy way to start your community is WhatsApp plus Luma, right? Luma is a lovely tool to get your events in place, host them on say something like Airmeet, close the loop with WhatsApp. That's a hack that I wish I had when I started. To be honest, lovely tools. Put that together. You're started. You can start today itself. All of them have a free tie. One thing that I think might be interesting on the engagement layer is how do you get people to interact with each other, right? One to one. At the product folks, we built our own tool called GrabChat. You can check it out, grabchat.online. Happy to help you with a white label solution, but there are others in the market today as well. In fact, Comsor acquired a company called Meetsy, which is a white labeled one-to-one connection tool. It's that important, right? So check it out. I think whether there might be lots of bots that are doing this today. Um,
Right.
for communities like for larger platforms like your Airmeet and Hopin, there is a tool called Brella, which they generally use. In fact, Airmeet right after this has your tables itself, right? So you can get, and they have that one-to-one connect feature on top. Um, so yeah, I think that's it. Lots of other
Yeah,
tools that we
fine.
use as tools.
That's
Yeah,
it is a very
yeah,
humble
completely.
opinion of that. I think if you already have not, Suhas, you should really like bucket them and put it out there in some
I should, I
article.
should,
You'll get tons of.
I
It's a
should, I
great
should.
lead magnet, a lot of
It's to
attention.
the pepper content team as well. I think that was the last bucket I wanted to add. That on the content side, many of you asked, they had a new tool come out called peppertype.ai, if I'm not wrong, and we use that to ensure that content. It's not everyone native game. It's not my native game either, but I think it just gives you those nudges, helps you use that. And there's not a plug by any chance, but I just remembered, so I think I wanted to share that because it's a game changer. To be very honest, for 0 to 1, they have a free tier. Do check that out for sure.
Yeah, if you're ever stuck thinking Calic who you can't type that first letter, I think
Exactly,
they help you there quite a lot. So yeah,
100%.
please check out these tools, and definitely I think Suhas and team are very active on Twitter, as well as other platforms you may have heard. You do please nudge him there. I'm sure in due time somebody will respond. And
Yeah,
Suhas, thanks a lot for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed the session. I wished we had more time. We could have done that case study. That sounded very cool.
yeah,
Thanks a lot, guys. Some interesting questions, quite engaged chat as well. Some funny jokes on white label too. So yeah, please tune into the product folks. tune into Indie Folio and get created. The platforms I run in case you're looking for designers, if you want to get a freelance design gig. And yeah, hopefully you all had a great time. Thanks a lot, guys. Have a great Saturday. Bye bye.